Dad's around. Do you ever? Where do you think I am? Heaven or hell?
6 Feet Under, an HBO class from 2001, broke all the rules and gave us a family funeral home drama that was as funny as it was heartbreaking. However, the stories off-screen are just as good as the stories on screen. So it's the perfect time to get straight into 20 weird facts you didn't know about the iconic television show. 1. The idea was inspired by a 1948 book. When you think about 6 Feet Under, it's hard not to picture the show as a unique idea straight from the brilliant mind of its creator, Alan Ball. However, it would surprise you to learn that the idea didn't really originate with him at all. The inspiration of the show goes back to a satirical novel written in 1948 by Evelyn Waugh, titled The Loved One. This disturbingly funny book, which poked fun at the funeral business in Los Angeles, was so fascinating to Caroline Strauss, the then head programmer at HBO, that she knew she wanted to create a show about death. So she reached out to Alan Ball, and at the time, Ball was about to be in high demand as his screenplay for American Beauty was set to earn him an Oscar. It just so happened that his sitcom, Oh Grow Up, had just been canceled, so he was in the perfect place to start a new project. That Christmas in 1999, Ball spent the holidays at home in Marietta, Georgia, and found himself sleeping in his late sister's bedroom. The memories surrounded him, and the concept of mortality seemed closer than ever. So with that understanding in mind, he began writing the pilot script for 6 Feet Under. It was in this deeply personal setting that the unforgettable world of 6 Feet Under was created. 2. Ball was given a strange note about his first draft. First drafts have a sordid history of not being the most perfect version of a story, and in this case, Ball's first draft wasn't all that Caroline Strauss had hoped it would be. When Alan Ball handed in his first draft for the 6 Feet Under pilot, HBO executive Caroline Strauss had one very specific criticism for him. She pointed out that the script was really good, but she also confessed that the story was too safe. Strauss's note was simple yet effective. She told Ball, "Could you just make it a little more messed up?" This was a little piece of feedback, but it was also truly memorable and became the unofficial mission statement of the whole show. Instead of creating a regular family drama, Ball was given the go-ahead to explore the messiest, most uncomfortable, and downright bizarre aspects of life and death. It was the freedom to go all out and be messy that gave him the ability to dig deep into the messiest and weirdest corners of the Fisher family's world. There were so many moments in the show that are a true testament to this, from the way Nate would have ghostly conversations with his dead father to Claire's morbidly artistic endeavors. The note from Strauss completely changes everything and throws it off its hinges. It wasn't just a mere suggestion, it was an invitation to create a piece of art that was groundbreaking and unafraid to be a little unconventional, and Ball took that note seriously. 3. Anna Faris didn't get a role. Because she was too funny. It's not every day an actor misses out on an opportunity because they are just too funny, and that's exactly what happened to Anna Faris. To start, the character Claire Fisher is one of the most beloved and complicated teenagers in television history, but the role almost went to an actress who differed from that vision. As it turns out, when they were casting for the part of Claire, the creators of the show really considered Anna Faris, a well-known comedian and actress who would later become famous for her roles in hit movies such as Scary Movie. During her audition, Faris performed an important scene where Claire, high on ecstasy, finds out about the passing of her father. However, instead of the moment being heartbreaking and gloomy, it was just funny. While Faris gave it her best shot to portray the tragic situation, her comedic timing kept making the show's creator, Alan Ball, laugh out loud. Ball had no reservations towards Faris and her talent, but he thought that her comedic instincts would be simply too dramatic for the heavyweight emotions the role required. At the end of the day, the role went to Lauren Ambrose, and she gave it the perfect blend of youthful angst and vulnerability. This was the classic case of an actor not being meant for one role and another being the perfect fit. It was beyond clear that Ambrose was the perfect choice to bring Claire's roller coaster journey to life. 4. Jeremy Sisto, Adam Scott, and Peter Krause all auditioned for the role of David Imagine. if the always buttoned-up funeral director, David Fisher, was played by someone else? Well, it nearly happened because the role of David was one of the most sought-after roles on the show. There were a few actors back in the day who wanted that role, and they auditioned for it as well. They include Jeremy Sisto, Adam Scott, and Peter Krause. Adam Scott, who would later go on to star in hit shows such as Parks and Recreation, recalled that for his audition, it was me, Michael Hall, and Jeremy Sisto testing for the role that Michael got. This just goes to show how close it was to having gone with another choice. While Michael C. Hall got the part of David fair and square, the others didn't leave empty-handed. Jeremy Sisto was brought back to play the character of Billy Chenoweth, Brenda's unstable brother. Through his character, he secured a role that became pivotal to the series. Adam Scott also landed a recurring role as David's boyfriend in the show's second season. Then there's Peter Krause, who perfectly embodied the role of the free-spirited Nate Fisher. He initially auditioned for the role of David, but as he read the scripts, he realized that he was so much more like Nate than he originally thought. This shift in perspective led him to the role that would define his career and create one of television's most iconic characters. 5. Alan Ball was fixated on Frances Conroy's audition shoes. When Frances Conroy went in to audition for the role of Ruth Fisher, she had a strong feeling that something felt a bit off. In her initial meeting with Alan Ball, the show's creator was fixated on her shoes and kept staring at them. As she prepared for her callback, she made a deliberate choice not to wear the same pink shoes she had worn previously. However, when she arrived, Ball noticed immediately and even asked her where they were. It turns out that Conroy believed this fixation was more than just a random observation. She also wore white anklets to her audition, and sure enough, Ruth, the character she played, wore white anklets on the show. It's remarkable to consider how much Alan Ball paid attention to every detail of the actors he was casting. He probably decided on a character based on the little things he noticed about the actor. Ball saw the potential for a character in the smallest details, right down to things like their shoes and socks. And it's these little details that helped in making the characters of 6 Feet Under feel so authentic. Ball wasn't just looking for the actor, he was looking for their quirks and their style, and he played into it. Conroy's quirks became important enough to Ruth's character. 6. It was Michael C. Hall's first role. It is impossible to imagine that Michael Fisher had never been on screen before he became the repressed and brooding David Fisher. Turns out, 6 Feet Under was his very first Hollywood role. He was a complete newbie to television, but he was a seasoned professional and a veteran of the New York theater scene. While he hadn't been on the big screen before, he had made his name on Broadway with his most notable role as the MC in Cabaret in 1999. The experience he gained from the stage was what gave him the courage and emotional depth to portray David so convincingly. His background in theater was particularly helpful, as he was already familiar with embodying complex characters. It was this same skill that had taken him far enough to secure his television debut. The most iconic part about this is that, even though it was his first time on screen, he was still able to give it all that he had. The series not only gave him his first ever on-screen career, but it also gave him a name as a well-known and established name as an actor. Thanks to this role, he was able to secure more iconic roles, such as the title character in Dexter. His success was a true testament to his talent, but also a testament to the casting director's eye for seeing potential in a stage actor. 7. Ball had a specific reason why the show was set in Los Angeles. Usually, when a show creator chooses where the story is set, the choice can be based on a variety of reasons. In this case, the reason is almost unusual. Alan Ball's choice to set 6 Feet Under in Los Angeles wasn't a mere coincidence. It was a well-thought-out decision that ended up shaping the entire series for the better. In his own words, Ball said, "I purposely chose Los Angeles to set the series in because, in a show about death, why not set it in the world capital of the denial of death, which has got to be Los Angeles. Los Angeles is where you come to recreate yourself and to become immortal." In a way, this was a paradoxical setting that created a nearly perfect backdrop for a show that was all about confronting mortality head-on. Los Angeles, which prides itself on being the city of endless sunshine and the pursuit of endless youth, became a powerful platform to portray the gloomy realities of the funeral home. Placing the Fisher family in an environment where people come to recreate themselves was an excellent and deeply provocative choice on the part of Ball. By doing so, he created a rich and layered commentary on American culture and its complicated relationship with life and loss. 8. The opening sequence was shot in Seattle. For a show set in Los Angeles, you would think everything about it would be done in Los Angeles. However, the iconic opening sequence of the show tells a different story. The iconic opening sequence of 6 Feet Under has been declared a masterpiece of television, and its creation also has its own story. American Beauty composer Thomas Newman wrote the music first, before the video and images were filmed and created. Before it ever became the mind-blowing and most popularly known music it is today, it had an unconventional start. Thanks to this unconventional start, the visuals were created specifically to the tone and mood of the music. The sequence's most unforgettable shot, which is a view of a lone tree, was captured near Lake Washington in Seattle. The story behind it is a bit weird. The production team purchased the tree for $400 from a resident's yard, uprooted it, and relocated it to a more cinematic spot. Because of this particular attention to detail, from the music to the visuals, the production team was able to create a sequence that perfectly set the stage for a show that was beautiful, strange, and deeply rooted in the end of life. 9. Rico and Julio were father and son in real life. The on-screen chemistry between Rico Diaz and his son, Julio, felt so real because it mostly was. Freddie Rodriguez, who played Rico Diaz, the family's sensitive and ambitious embalmer, was cast alongside his real-life son, Giancarlo Rodriguez. This was not just a random or convenient casting choice, it was a choice born out of genuine chemistry, and it brought out a father and son dynamic that the show truly needed. The relationship between Rico and Julio was an understated yet continuous thread throughout the show, and having a real father and son in those roles added a sweet, natural ease and authenticity that could not have been faked. This father and son bond also worked out on other projects as well. For instance, Giancarlo also appeared on an episode of the show Ugly Betty, where his father, Freddie, was also a regular cast member. For a show that dealt so heavily with fictional family dynamics, this real-life connection was a small but huge detail that made the family of 6 Feet Under feel even more authentic, believable, and heartfelt. The father-son duo was yet another excellent casting choice on the part of the producers and the show creator. It is almost unimaginable to think of a world in which 6 Feet Under didn't have the chemistry of Rico and Julio. 10. One of the writers strongly objected to one scene. One thing about 6 Feet Under was its innate ability to talk about the hardest topics, but one scene in the first season was so controversial that it caused a major divide in the writers' room. This scene appeared in an episode called The Trip. It was a storyline that showed the heartbreaking passing of a baby. The decision to adopt this storyline was met with strong opposition from one of the show's writers, who believed it was too dark and would cause the audience to abandon the show. The writer argued and was certain that this storyline was a mistake and refused to get on board with it. However, the creator of the show, Alan Ball, felt that the show needed to face all aspects of death no matter how hard it seemed. The creative team decided to move forward with the scene, and while it was super difficult to watch, it ultimately deepened the show's exploration of grief and loss. The writer who had fought against the scene disappeared. Turns out Ball fired him at the end of the season. This turning point showed that Alan Ball was certain what direction he wanted the show to head towards, and he and his team were more than determined to tell stories without fear, even if it meant challenging both their audience and their writers. 11. Lili Taylor didn't know her character was having an affair. One of the most surprising and heartbreaking plot twists in 6 Feet Under was the revelation that Lisa Kimmel Fisher, Nate's wife and mother of his child, was having an affair. It gets even trickier and weirder because Lili Taylor, the actress who played Lisa, had no idea that this was coming. It was a big shock to the actress, and she revealed that she was not told about the affair until the 3rd episode from when it happened, leaving her with very little time to adjust to her performance. Taylor had feelings about the news. She wished she had known about the affair sooner. She felt that if she had known about the affair from the beginning, she would have played her character Lisa so much differently. She would have infused the character with subtle clues and maybe a silent guilt that would have foreshadowed the reveal. Instead, she had to actively justify her character's actions and motivations so that the audience could better understand them. This fact provides an interesting insight into how the industry operates. It is collaborative, yet sometimes secretive, and that's just how television writing works sometimes. It also demonstrates how a writer's decision to keep major plot points a secret can influence the actor's portrayal of the character involved, as well as the audience's ultimate perception of the character. 12. Gary Busey auditioned for a role. When it comes to Hollywood, sometimes even the most unsuspecting names can throw their hat into the ring only to be unsuccessful. While the casting process for 6 Feet Under was full of many surprises, one of the most memorable and surprising was Gary Busey's audition. The talented actor auditioned for the role of a character named Pete in the second season episode titled "It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year." Busey, known for his wild and unpredictable personality, would have been a unique choice for the show. Unfortunately for him, his audition was unsuccessful, and the role went to W. Earl Brown, who delivered a powerful and quite interesting performance. To think that there was a slim chance that the role could have gone to Busey makes you wonder what the character would have been like. It's hard to imagine anyone but Brown in the role, but it remains a weird piece of trivia to think about how different the show and the character would have turned out under the helm of Busey. The fact that the creators considered such a wide range of actors for their roles, from stage veterans and experts to comedic actors and even wild cards like Busey, speaks volumes about their dedication to finding the right fit for every character, no matter how small their role. At the end of the day, the right man for the job was hired, and the role of Pete was a perfect fit for Brown. 13. Richard Jenkins caused confusion at a real funeral. While the show was still on the air, the actor who played Nathaniel Fisher, the ghostly patriarch of the Fisher family, attended a real-life funeral. A woman approached him, tapped him on the shoulder, and asked him a simple yet peculiar question. "Are they filming this?" This wasn't a joke. It was a serious question from a woman who was so used to seeing Jenkins as the deceased father on screen. This peculiar moment highlights just how convincing Jenkins' character was. He was a constant ghostly presence on the show, and perhaps he did his job a little too well, because it had become so convincing that it was confusing real life. To the woman at the funeral, she thought she was witnessing a scene from the show and had probably forgotten that a real funeral was taking place. This was a funny moment and weird for the actor. His portrayal of Jenkins was so memorable and realistic to audiences that they forgot he was just an actor playing a role. They saw him as the ghost of the show, and perhaps the lines were getting a bit blurred, especially for the woman who approached him at the funeral. This moment, as weird as it was, probably became a humorous story to tell people, and it was also a credit to Jenkins' great acting skill. 14. The series finale's wild idea. The series finale of 6 Feet Under is probably one of the wildest finales in the history of television. It is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most unique endings of a television series. However, it will shock you to know that what became a fascinating finale started as a joke. While in the writer's room, the team was trying to find the perfect way to end the show. It was a show about life and death, so it deserved an end befitting of the storyline. The writers were struggling to find the perfect end, and in all the brainstorming, one of the writers blurted out, "We should just kill everybody." Everybody in the room began to laugh, but soon enough they stopped laughing when they realized it was probably a brilliant and perfectly fitting idea. The suggestion had evolved from a joke to a serious idea in a heart, and they began to realize that this would likely provide the most perfect and poetic ending to the show. The creator of the show, Alan Ball, and the team held on to this idea. They realized that the only way to truly end a show about death was to depict the final moments of everyone involved. It was a bold, raw, and remarkably brilliant decision that had the potential to give the show an iconic yet emotional ending. The result was exactly as envisioned, and it turned out to be one of the greatest endings in television history. 15. An extra played a 101-year-old Claire in the finale's death montage. The final moments of the 6 Feet Under finale feature a moving montage that shows the deaths of each of the main characters. For many of the cast members, this meant undergoing hours of makeup and prosthetics to age them and look the part. However, not all of them got to do this, and for one lucky and for extra, their story became different. For the final shot of Claire, it was a completely different route to be taken. The production team for the show cast an extra to play the role of the 101-year-old Claire on her deathbed. The extra was in her 70s, and realistically, she provided a sense of authenticity that the makeup alone might not have been able to achieve. For the close-up shots of Claire's eyes as she takes her final breath, the extra wore contact lenses to create a cloudy and aged look. This was a brilliant and subtle choice to use a different actress for the final scenes of Claire's life, showcasing the show's commitment to realism and providing a riveting portrayal of the aging process. While this was a minor detail, it still added a monumental amount of emotional weight to one of the most powerful scenes in television history. 16. A personal tragedy inspired Nathaniel's death. One thing that stands out about 6 Feet Under is the emotional depth of it all, and this comes from a genuine place, one that is rooted in the deep and personal pain of the show's creator, Alan Ball. When he was just 13 years old, he was in a car with his older sister when they were in a fatal accident. She was driving him to piano practice on her 22nd birthday when a car crashed into the driver's side of the door, killing her instantly. Ball, who was in the passenger seat, walked away with only a few minor injuries. Unfortunately, this traumatic event and the sudden and senseless death of a loved one are one of the most direct inspirations for the way Nathaniel Fisher's character dies in the show's pilot. The accident was brutal and unexpected, and it was a pain that Alan Ball had to carry around for the rest of his life. The nature of a tragedy like this leaves you wondering how fast life can be cut short in the matter of an instant, and it mirrors the way life works. In this case, Ball experienced the loss of his sister. This personal and profound connection gave the show a raw and honest look at grief and mortality, resonating with audiences all over the world. The show wasn't just a story about death, it was a deeply felt exploration of a real-life tragedy. Whenever Ball felt sad, his sister's and father's passing would overwhelm him. He would walk around in this traumatic state and even visit the room of his late sister, which is where he came up with the idea for 6 Feet Under. He wrote the script in just a few weeks and then sent it to HBO. HBO then bought the pilot and committed an entire series, which was quite a risk at that time. All this to say that perhaps the great loss he felt was channeled into certain storylines of the script. 17. The son of a literary legend was a director on set. 6 Feet Under is usually commended and loved by audiences because of its innate ability to blend normal family drama with fantasy elements, or as most people like to call it, magical realism. One weird connection that might surprise you is that Rodrigo Garcia directed several episodes of the show. His father happens to be none other than Gabriel Garcia, the Nobel Prize-winning author and the undisputed patriarch of the magical realism movement. This connection is mind-blowing to say the least, because what are the odds that Gabriel Garcia Marquez's son found his way to direct a show based on magical realism to an extent? Garcia directed some of the show's most memorable episodes, including the Season 2 and Season 3 premieres. He also worked behind the camera to help bring the show's surreal and dreamlike nature to life. The series was heavily rooted in magical realism, so it was only fitting to find a director who knew how to bring that to life, and who better than a talented director who also happens to be the son of a patriarch of magical realism. The moments in the show where deceased Nathaniel Fisher appears to his children, or when the characters have vivid and symbolic visions, are all a major part of this genre. So, having a director who had a deep-rooted connection to magic realism was a perfect choice for a show that constantly blurred the lines between the living and those who were no more. 18. Juliette Lewis auditioned for the role of Brenda. It is hard to picture anyone but the remarkable Rachel Griffiths as Brenda Chenoweth, but it turns out that another famous actress was also in the running for the role. Back in the day, Juliette Lewis was all in to portray the quirky, intelligent, and emotionally volatile character that is Brenda, so she was one of the actresses who auditioned for the role. Juliette Lewis was already an established actress, known for her unconventional and often edgy performances in films such as Natural Born Killers. Lewis would have been an interesting choice choice, and as far as actresses go, if Rachel Griffiths hadn't gotten the role, she would have been a good choice. She had a certain aura that felt unpredictable yet raw and authentic. This energy has given the character something different, yet just as compelling as the Brenda we witnessed on our screens. However, in the end, the role was made for Griffiths, which is why she got the part. Griffiths was certainly a great choice for Brenda. She brought a certain vulnerability and sharp wit to the character. Thanks to her, Brenda was an iconic character to watch on 6 Feet Under, so it is hard to imagine a world where someone else played Brenda. While it's fun to think about what Juliette Lewis's performance would have been like, it is hard to picture the show without Griffiths' incredible portrayal of Brenda. 19. Rachel Griffiths gambled to make the audition. Speaking of Rachel Griffiths, you cannot talk about her role as Brenda without talking about how she made her way to the audition. When it was time to cast the role of Brenda Chenoweth, Rachel Griffiths was at a major disadvantage, and she had a few hoops to jump through to make it to the audition. Rachel Griffiths was living in her native land of Australia, which meant she was far away from the Los Angeles casting calls. Things got even trickier because the network, HBO, was reluctant to pay for her flight since it was just for an audition. However, Griffiths is determined and in no mood to back down without giving it a good go. Determined to land the part, she took a big gamble, a move that surprised everyone. She struck a deal with the network. She would pay for her flight to Los Angeles for the audition, and if she got the role, HBO would reimburse her. This was a big risk, because if she hadn't gotten the role, she would have been out of money. However, she believed in herself enough to take the risk. She knew her passion for the role would pay off, so she flew to California and gave an incredible audition for the role. In the end, not only did she get the role of Brenda, but she also went on to receive several Emmy and Golden Globe nominations for her performance. This was a bold move on her part, and it showed just how much she wanted to be part of the show. Her risky gamble should provide a level of inspiration to anyone, as it proves that sometimes a little self-belief and a big risk can be all you need to succeed. 20. 6 Feet Under was the starting point of many big stars. 6 Feet Under was a huge success and a remarkable series that continues to captivate people to this day. It is also a launchpad for numerous remarkable actors who went on to become stars and household names. If you look back on the show, you will realize that it was almost a who's who of future television and film stars. Most of these actors had small yet memorable roles at the time, but they gained fame as they moved through life. One of the most recognizable actors on the show is Rainn Wilson, who appeared as Arthur Martin, a neurotic and devoutly religious apprentice at the Fisher & Sons funeral home. This role provided a significant platform to showcase his unique way of delivering awkward performances, and it served as a perfect springboard into his iconic role as Dwight Schrute on The Office. Similarly, his future co-star Jenna Fisher almost made an appearance on the show as a young character named Sherry, which gave viewers a glimpse into her comedic talent that would ultimately make her famous. The show also featured stars like Zachary Quinto, who played a sensitive and rebellious student years before landing the roles of Sylar in Heroes and the iconic Spock in the Star Trek films. Another honorable mention is Ben Foster, who played a recurring role as Russell Corwin, a complex artist who develops a close relationship with Claire. With his talent, he gained notoriety over the years. Other notable future stars from the show include Adam Scott, who appeared briefly as a love interest for David, Molly Parker, Michelle Trachtenberg, David Hornsby, and Bobby Cannavale. Watching 6 Feet Under was probably some of the best moments in most viewers' lives. It had everything, from the suspense to romance and the eerie nature of life. The behind-the-scenes facts are just as interesting and rooted in life and the afterlife, like the show was. If you loved hearing about these weird 6 Feet Under facts, chances are you'll like this channel very much. So don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more information about your favorite shows. Which of these facts fascinated you the most? Share with us in the comments. See you next time.